What's going on, you guys? Dark Saints back yet again with another video, this time talking to you guys about the Division. In this video we're going to be going over the weapon changes coming with update 1.4. And if you look on screen you'll see a timetable that tells you where you can jump to the information that you're looking for. So for those of you guys who want to jump ahead, feel free to do so. The rest of it will just be covering all the details with the weapon changes. Now I did do a full video on all the changes coming with update 1.4 from the patch notes that we have. However, it was so vague and there's just so many patch notes that I really wasn't able to touch in depth on pretty much anything. And I felt like that was kind of cheating it a little bit. So I really wanted to come back and do a couple of videos on some of the changes that are really going to affect the players more than anything else. Now there will still be some UI changes and some other changes that are going to affect the gameplay. And like I said, if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. But for these videos, I am mainly going to be looking at the changes that people are really looking forward to, such as your weapon changes, gear changes, and stuff like that. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at all the weapon changes that are coming with update 1.4. So, feel free to sit back and enjoy the video. If you do enjoy it, be sure to hit the like button, and let's go ahead and get started. Alright, starting out with global changes. The first thing off is named weapons no longer locked to a specific gear score except for the Damascus, which is that pistol that you unlock early in the game as soon as you get to the final level. That will stay at 163, which, you know, it's kind of nice when you first beat the game and you finally have that one high-end weapon that you can keep around with you. I know that I really enjoyed being able to unlock that and everything. However, it not coming to the new gear scores is kind of upsetting because I really like the Damascus, not necessarily for the damage output, but for the design. I thought it was a cool looking weapon. Them not bringing it to 229 is a little bit upsetting, but it's okay. It's all good. I have the blueprint. I can make it as many times as I want if I want to look at it. So it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. But all the other weapons will no longer be locked to specific gear scores. You can find them wherever. So for those of you guys that are collectors, going to have to start collecting again in order to find the top tier of each one. And you can find them in a variety of different places. World tier determines the gear score of the weapon when it drops or is bought. So you can still buy weapons. Don't believe you can buy named weapons anymore. You will have to find them. But the tier of world that you're in, as I said in my last video, you have tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you're in tier 4 and the enemies drop some weapons, they're going to be of really, really high quality. If you're in tier 3, they'll be less of that said quality. All named weapon blueprints have been removed, so you won't be able to find them from vendors anywhere. If you have them, you will keep the blueprints, but they will only be built at the gear score that the blueprint has them designated for. So if you're looking for a 229 Pecan or anything like that, you're gonna have to go out and find it. Named weapons will now have to be acquired through loot drops and vendors. Okay, so they do have some named weapons at vendors. I have to look around and see if I can find them. Maybe the Pecan and all those are still at the same vendors. They're just harder to buy. You have to go to tier 4 global world, change your world to tier 4, and then go check them out. And they're probably like 5 times as expensive. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see exactly what that means and what vendors still sell them. Next is the DPS calculation. There is a new value for it. It will be added up differently. The calculation will be completely different for the DPS. DPS calculation now value headshot damage differently for each weapon category to more accurately guide players when modding weapons. So this will take out, for example, like accuracy and stuff like that. That doesn't actually change the amount of damage that you do, but on your DPS it says that it does. So accuracy, I believe, is going to be completely taken out. There's some other factors that are going to be taken out that really affect DPS, such as like magazine size and stuff like that. You're not actually doing more damage per second just because your magazine is larger. You're not doing more damage per second just because your accuracy is better. Damage per second is the damage that you do per bullet that lands on its mark. You can raise your accuracy up to max, and you're not really going to be doing any more damage as you would if your accuracy was at mid-level or something. So long as you control it and your bullets are hitting, you're going to be doing the same amount of damage regardless. But with the current system, it calculates the DPS to say that you're doing significantly more damage when in actuality you're not really doing any more damage than you normally would. It's just easier to control your bursts. Next, weapon recalibration. When recalibrating a weapon, The player will now be able to pick from 6 talents additionally to the initial 1 instead of a 3-to-1. This should lower the impact of RNG and increase the chances of actually getting the talent you want before you run out of tries. Weapon mods have been changed. They will now have 1 major bonus and an amount of smaller bonus depending on the quality of the mod. Some stats on weapon mods have been merged into one. Horizontal stability and initial bullet stability are now merged into stability. Hip fire accuracy is now merged into accuracy, so you won't be getting weird kind of calibration things like horizontal and initial bullet stability. It's all just stability. You're going to have stability of your weapon, which makes a lot more sense. I didn't really care for the horizontal stability on a sniper. Do you really need horizontal stability on a sniper? No, you just need it to where if you're using an M1A, it doesn't kick as significantly. So you're just trying to control the stability of the weapon, not whether or not it kicks left or right. That doesn't make sense. Whatever. And damage bonus is also now additive instead of multiplicative. So damage bonus will be added on top of things rather than multiplied on top of things. We'll have to see exactly how that works. That should make it to where damage bonuses aren't as significant, but at the same time they also said the time to kill has been significantly reduced. So really it just comes down to a whole new formula that they're using. So a lot of this stuff we're not really going to understand until we actually see the game and see how it plays out, because we don't know what their new calculation systems are going to be. So a lot of these changes with numbers, we might not really see a dramatic change as much as it's saying that there is, just because there's a whole new calculation in it altogether. Next, we'll take a look at the weapon talents. They've pretty much all been rebalanced in some way, shape, form, or another. So I'm going to go ahead and read through all of them and see where we are with all of the weapon talents. Starting out, we have accurate. Accuracy is improved by 25%. This used to range from 20 to 50% depending on the gear score of the weapon. Next, we have adept. Using a skill increases your critical hit chance by 7.5% for 15 seconds. This used to range from a 3 to 10% increase for 5 seconds. Now it's 7.5% for 15 seconds across the board. Balance. This weapon reaches max accuracy faster when shouldering. No change. Brutal, 12% headshot damage bonus with this weapon. Used to range from 10 to 25%. Now it's down to 12%. Pretty big nerf, but to be 100% honest, we really don't know what the severity is of that, considering there is a new calculation in the damage output and the enemy kill time and everything else. And with these new calculations, we really have to see whether or not it's a significant nerf or even something that we can really notice in our PvE experience or even in our PvP experience. We'll just have to wait and see of whether or not that's really a impactful nerf or just a new calculation in with the weapon damage. Capable. Using a skill improves the handling of the weapon for 15 seconds. Handling is improved by 25%, and it used to range from 20 to 50%, and it lasts for 15 seconds, and that used to range from 5 to 15 seconds. Commanding. Every kill performed while your signature skill is active extends the duration of the signature skill by 5 to 20%. No change. That's the only one that seems to have a range on it. Everything else has taken the range out and just left with a solid number. Commanding is the only one that still has a range variation depending on the gear score of your weapon. Next, we have competent. Whenever you use a skill, your weapon damage is increased by 10% for 15 seconds. It is used to range from 5 to 15% damage increase for 10 seconds. Now it lasts longer for a total of 15 seconds, but at a solid baseline of 10%. I do believe that if you could combo this with Adept, you probably have a pretty decent combo, given that Adept lasts for the same amount of time as Competent does. So you'll not only get an increase to weapon damage, but you'll also get a critical hit chance bonus of 7.5%. So might be something to play with those two abilities. Next, you have Cool-Headed. Doing a headshot reduces all your skill cooldowns by 5%. This used to range from 2 to 7.5%. That being said, it says doing a headshot reduces all your skill cooldowns. I don't understand if that's a headshot kill or if it's, just popping somebody in the head, because if it's just, mowing them down, by headshotting them with an SMG, you get your skills back pretty quickly. So we'll have to see exactly how that works. I personally don't really use Cool-Headed, so I'm not sure 100% of how it works, to be 100% honest with you. Next, we have Deadly. 15% critical hit damage. This used to range from 5 to 30%. Now it's at 15%. So same thing with Brutal. It took a very significant nerf, pretty much cutting it in half of what it used to be. But like I said before, we'll have to see where the math falls in with the kill time and everything else to whether or not that's a significant nerf or just a required nerf, just so that the numbers match up for the current meta and the current formula for the game. Next is destructive, 15% to armor destruction with this weapon. This used to range from 3 to 20%. Basically, it's just enemy armor damage. You do 15% more enemy armor damage. And this used to range from 3 to 20%. Now it's at 15% across the board, regardless of the gear score of the weapon. Next is determined. Killing a target reduces your skill cooldowns by 7.5%. This used to range from 5 to 10%. Dominant. Every kill performed while your signature skill is active reduces the cooldown of your other skills by 10%. This used to range from 3 to 10%. Now it's 10% across the board. Ferocious. Plus 10% bonus damage to elite and named enemies. This used to range from 5 to 15%. Now it's at 10% across the board. Fierce, 5% critical hit chance with this weapon. This used to range from 5 to 10%. Now it's stuck at 5%. Harmful, each hit has a 15% chance to apply the bleed status effect to the target. This used to range from 3 to 15%. Intense, the first bullet in the magazine has a 25% chance to apply the fire status effect to a target. This used to range from 3 to 13%, so it pretty much doubles the maximum capabilities of what intense used to be. So now at 25% has a chance of catching the enemy on fire. However, the on fire effect doesn't do what it used to do. It's probably just some DOT rather than, you know, actually catching them on fire and making them immobile. Pretty sure it'll work very similar to the bleed effect. Next, we have Meticulous. Killing a target has a 25% chance of instantly refilling your magazine. This used to range from 5 to 25%. Now it's at 25% across the board, which Meticulous is very overlooked, but I do believe Meticulous does have a place with shotguns, specifically your Super 90 shotguns and things like that, because the reload time is so significant. But if you combo that with the talent 1 is none, you can definitely get a lot of ammo out of a shotgun before you ever have to reload, or if you even ever have to do reload using the talent Meticulous. Next, we have Predatory. Killing a target regenerates 35% of your health over 20 seconds. This used to range from 5 to 15% for 5 seconds. Now, 20 seconds is a long time to get back all of your health, but a 35% of your health back is really, really significant. And I could see this being fairly viable in PvE situations if you're able to mow down just a ton of enemies and able to get all that health back. Just non-stop healing, basically. We'll have to see where that lands at. I'm definitely going to want to use this and really see where it sits at as far as health regenerations. Hopefully combo that with an LMG. Now that LMGs are being brought up to par, we'll be able to see exactly what we can do with a lot of these other skills. Next is Prepared. When further than 30 meters from your target, your damage is increased by 15%. This used to require you to be 40 meters from your target in order to get the bonus, and the bonus used to range from 5 to 15%. Now it's 30 meters, and it ranges at 15% solid. It doesn't change regardless of the gear score of the weapon, so it's stuck at 15%. Next is Proficient. The first bullet shot when out of combat has a 50% bonus chance to result in a critical hit, basically giving you 50% critical hit chance so long as you're not in combat and it's the first bullet in your magazine. This used to range from 25% to 50%. Now it's solid at 50%. Next is Provident. The last bullet in the magazine deals 60% more damage. This used to range from 25% up to 60%, but now it's 60% for the last bullet. This is great for any of those heavy-hitting shotguns, as well as something like an M44 sniper, any of those really solid bolt-action weapons that you can get to the last round fairly quickly and really pop off a really hard, definitely heavy-hitting shot, and definitely worth considering for those of you guys that use bolt actions or any kind of weapon like that. It isn't going to help you a lot with assault rifles or SMGs or anything like that, but for those shotguns, definitely something to consider. And even definitely something to consider if you guys are using something like a double barrel shotgun or something like that, considering you only have 2 shots to use. You're pretty much always going to be using this perk, so definitely something to consider. And it can be chained with the talent 1 is none on a shotgun, being able to fire out that last slug and it do a ton of damage, and getting it back so long as you're landing headshots, comboing it with the talent one is none, you can continuously hit technically the last bullet in the magazine multiple times. And that can also be comboed with a bolt action sniper. It just won't be as significant as it is with the shotgun, since the shotgun perks the talent one is none significantly more often than any other weapon in the game. Next is Restored. This talent has been removed from the game. Restored is no longer in the game at all. That's been taken out. Skilled. Headshot kills with this weapon increase signature skill resource by 5%. This used to range from 3 to 13%. Now it's stuck at 5% across the board. Next we have Stable. Stability is improved by 35%. This used to range from 20 to 50%. Now it's 35% across the board. Steady, the talent has been removed from the game, so Steady can no longer be found. Sustain, plus 6% life on kill. This used to range from 1 to 6%. Now it's 6% across the board. Swift, reloading is 15% faster. This used to have a range from 5 to 15%. Talented, killing a target with this weapon increases your skill power by 15% for 20 seconds. Does not stack. Killing a new target refreshes the timer. This used to range from 3 to 10% and lasts from 5 to 15 seconds. So now it not only has been buffed to 15%, but it also lasts for 20 seconds. So significant improvement on Talented. Next we have Toxic. Headshots with this weapon have a 15% chance to apply the blind status effect instead of a 5 to 15%. Drained, critical hits increase your signature skill resource by 0.1%, no change to that. Unforgiving, damage increased based on your missing health segments. 1 missing health segment is 10%, 2 missing health segments is 25%. Used to range from 5 to 10% and 15 to 25%. Now it is stagnant at 10% and 25%, depending on which health segment. Next is Vicious. Your critical hit chance is increased by 10% while you are at least at 2 health segments instead of 5 to 15%. And they did really put words in there. As long as you have 2 health segments rather than being at full health, so long as you have 2 health segments, you will get the critical hit chance increase. Once you break your first health segment bracket, then you will no longer get that. So that's been modified. Responsive, when closer than 10 meters from your target, your damage is increased by 10%. This used to be 5 to 15%, 15% being the max, and now it's at 10%. So nothing super effective as far as responsive, but it did get a slight nerf. And last is Self-Preserved. Critical hits with this weapon heal you for 3% of damage dealt. This used to be a range of 0.5 to 3%. Now it's stagnant at 3%. Alright, now to look at the weapons themselves. How are weapons going to be affected by Update 1.4? Starting out with the assault rifles, G36 base damage is being decreased by an additional 5%, so the G36 will take an additional nerf. The Caduceus has had its talents modified completely. It's being completely revamped. Starting out with Talented, killing a target with this weapon increases your skill power by 15% for 20 seconds. Competent, whenever you use a skill, your weapon damage is increased by 10% for 15 seconds. And Determined, killing a target reduces your skill cooldown by 7.5%. Now these are all very useful talents, however all of them do require a significant amount of skill power. I understand that there's going to be new changes to the gear sets, which I'll cover in another video. But this is definitely a skill build type weapon. The Caduceus is very skill power sided. It's not necessarily for lead assaults. It does have a lot of good talents, but it does require some skill power in order to obtain those said talents. So either way, Caduceus overall is a very nice weapon, and definitely being able to find a 229 version of it is something that I'm looking forward to as well. Next, let's talk about LMGs. Reduced all LMG damage bonus on targets out of cover from 28% maximum to 19% maximum. So all LMGs across the board are getting a little bit of a PvE nerf, which I don't understand why they would do that, considering LMGs aren't exactly the prime in PvE, but they're going to go ahead and nerf them for whatever reason. Either way, L86 base damage decreased by 7.4%. So the base damage of an L86 has been reduced. They seem to be hitting it again. This is your normal 30-round magazine LMG, one of the faster firing rates. It feels very similar to an assault rifle. For whatever reason, they felt like they needed to nerf it. So that's been changed. Next are the RPK models. These are the 45-round magazine LMGs. There's no change to those. Then we have the M60. Base damage increased by almost 20% at 19.4%, and an M249 is base damage is increased by 17.4%. So whether or not the M60 or the M249 is going to be stronger, we'll have to wait and see. But both of those did get a pretty decent buff, and we'll just have to wait and see what those two can do now with update 1.4. Next, let's take a look at the SMGs, and SMGs got hammered with update 1.4. They just got slammed. Reduced all SMG critical hit damage bonus from a maximum of 47% to a maximum of 38% now. So they did lose quite a bit in their critical hit damage bonus. MP7 is taking a damage reduction of 27.6%. MP7 is getting slammed. MP5 is also getting a decrease of 11.1. Vector is getting a decrease of 13.8. SMG9 is getting a decrease of 9.2. AUG is getting a decrease of 10.3, PP19 is getting a decrease of 13.8, and T821 is getting a decrease of 13.3. So all SMGs across the board have had a nerf, and whether or not they'll be significant going into the future, we'll have to wait and see. I have seen some people using the SMGs in 1.3, and they were doing pretty decent, but with update 1.4, we just don't know what we're going to be looking at. The PTS-3, like I was saying, did show some significant work being done with some of the SMGs, and them still being viable. But with update 1.4 being finally launched after PTS week 4, I just don't know where SMGs are going to sit. We'll just have to wait and see, you guys. Probably not going to be the new meta, but you never know. The accuracy of the SMGs is still a critical point, and who knows, maybe they will still give you a run for your money. We'll just have to wait and see. Next is shotguns. All shotguns with a gear score of 229 took a damage decrease of 30%. So shotguns across the board took a nerf. Other than the Showstopper, base damage is increased by 20%. Now technically the Showstopper is a 229 weapon, so I don't know if it got a nerf and then a buff back up. I'm not 100% sure where it is. We'll just have to wait and see where the Showstopper sets going into the future. It is a named weapon. I would like to see it a little bit more viable in both PvE and PvP, but we'll just have to wait and see what the Showstopper can do. Next is the marksman rifles, and you guys are going to be very upset with the news about the marksman rifles. Starting out, the M1A base damage is decreased by 35%. The M1A, that's SOCOM and First Wave M1A, are getting a smack of 35% nerf. That is a significant nerf in the amount of damage that the M1As were doing. Next is the SVD, base damage decreased by 3.7%. That's the very accurate, very stable, the newer sniper that they just added to the game. I normally like it, but it definitely wasn't hitting as hard as the M1A. Now with the M1A is getting a significant nerf, maybe SVD will start giving it a run for its money. As far as the fast firing, still hitting fairly decent snipers. The SCAR is getting a base damage increase of 22.9. That might actually put the SCAR models, not the SCAR L, mind you, those are the assault rifle models, but the SCAR snipers, marksman rifles, getting a buff of 22.9% might actually put them on the map as far as viable weapons to use for PvE situations, or maybe even PvP. We'll have to wait and see. Next, we have the SRS. These are your standard bolt action ones. They're getting a base damage increase of 20%. And the custom M44, these are the bolt actions, low magazine, are getting a base damage increase of 15%. Now, personally, I love both the SRS and the M44, the M44 being my personal favorite sniper in the game. And it getting a base damage increase, I'm definitely excited about. Might be able to get a very, very nice setup on that as far as the skills, and I will do a video over a M44 once I actually obtain one with update 1.4 and see if I can't make just a monster of a god roll with it. That's definitely a weapon that I'm wanting to use going into update 1.4. And last thing we're going to look at is the pistols. The X45 is getting a base damage decrease of 40%. That X45 is the new pistol they introduced to the game, and it is definitely getting hit hard. It has been stronger than the other pistols pretty much across the board, even giving revolvers a run for its money in the damage department, even though it has a significantly higher magazine. But it is definitely getting nerfed by a 40% nerf. I mean, that is significant nerf. Next, we have the M9 base damage increase by 10%, so the M9 kind of catches up a little bit with some of the other weapons, and then the PX4 getting a damage increase of 25%. So as far as the sidearms, I'm definitely a big fan of sawed-off shotguns, but given that all shotguns are getting a nerf, all 229 shotguns, I'm assuming that that's also meaning sidearm shotguns. I just don't know what's going to be the best sidearm to run with. Obviously, most people don't use their sidearms for anything, but I enjoy having a strong sidearm just because I enjoy having it. It doesn't matter whether I use it or not, I just enjoy having it. And so we'll just have to see where everything lands. Either way, you guys, that'll wrap it up for all the patch notes. If you guys have any questions about the updates with 1.4, remember some of these are still due to change. We still have a little bit before October 25th. I don't think we're going to see any changes. This is pretty much set in stone, as some of these changes are dictated by the PTS as well. So some of the changes that you will see on these are affected by the PTS. So they might not necessarily be the changes that you're expecting to see once the game actually launches. And again, there's also a new calculation system in the game. So a lot of these changes we're not going to completely feel or understand until we actually see the game. You know, you might feel like you're killing enemies 5 times faster than what you were previously, even with the nerfs, and that's only because of the damage modifiers on the weapons themselves have been changed significantly, giving a faster time to kill against enemy AIs and giving you more health as far as fighting enemy AIs. And we'll definitely have to see how everything plays out in PvP. Either way, you guys, that'll wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it informative. And I will catch you guys next time in the next video.